So, Abby, do you know any books Steve might not have read? Do you think he's read this one? Abby? You want to sleep, okay. Hello, this isn't Book Time with Abby. That was just a little play, a dig at Book Time with Elvis. This is my channel, I'm Jim. This channel is about books and reading and stuff. This video is entitled Has Steve Read It? Steve is Steve Donoghue. Steve Donoghue is the alpha male on this corner of Booktube. Steve Donoghue is a professional reader. He spends his time reading, uploading Booktube videos, of which he's uploaded about 4,100. He uploads up to 5 Booktube videos a day. He reviews books, he looks after his dog, and he watches Booktube videos. That's his life. He's a professional reviewer, a professional reader, if you will. The idea for these videos, Has Steve Read It?, came from Matthew at the Mayberry Book Club, and it's been revised recently by Daniel at Guilty Feet. I watched Daniel's video and I watched Steve's response to Daniel's video. Steve Donoghue has read an awful lot, a prodigious amount of books, and the idea is that we choose books from our collections that we think, has he read it or hasn't he? There's some rules for this. We have to choose 8 books, although Mark Nash chose 16, 8 fiction, 8 non-fiction, but he's a bit of an anarchist. 8 books, and they can't be too obscure, too niche, too much a-hole choices like, I don't know, the IBM typewriter manual or some vanity project that almost nobody in the world has read. But Daniel at Guilty Feet, he managed to get 2 books, 2 home runs, including Evil Cradling, which I was surprised by because I've read that and I was sure that Steve Donoghue would have read it, but apparently not. So we can get home runs with reasonably well-known books. I've chosen 8 books. This is going to be fun. I'm just an epsilon male in this corner of Booktube, but I don't pretend to be a contender here, but I will see how I do. The first book I've chosen is this one, The Dead Stay Dumb by James Hadley Chase. James Hadley Chase is a very prolific author. He was a British author. He wrote about 90 books. They were very popular in France. Here, this is his second novel. This came out in 1940 or 1941, and it's about a gangster called Dylan who fancies himself as a modern-day Dillinger, modern day in 1941, and I'm not sure if Steve will have read this. Many of James Hadley Chase's books were turned into films, were turned into French films because he was more popular there than he was in England or America. But I'd be interested to know, has Steve read The Dead Stay Dumb, or has he read any of James Hadley Chase's oeuvre? I imagine he's read some of them, but has he read this one? I imagine Steve's read most of the English and the American literary canon, so I think I'm off to a loser here. This is Elizabeth Gaskell's first novel, Mary Barton. I'm sure Steve will have read Cranford and North and South. I also know he's a great fan of Jane Austen and George Eliot, so I imagine Elizabeth Gaskell is certainly on his radar, and he's probably read everything that she's written, but I'll try it anyway. This is Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell. It's about a woman in the 19th century in Manchester who's working class. Her father works in the mills. It's also one of the very first thrillers. There's a murder in this and a mystery about who did the murder. As I mentioned, Daniel of Guilty Feet, he got a home run with The Evil Cradling, so I'll try another book about incarceration. I recently read Solitary by Albert Woodfox. Albert Woodfox was a member of the Black Panther Party. He was no angel, that's for sure. He was put in prison for armed robbery. While he was in prison, a guard was murdered and he was framed for the murder, and he served over 40 years in Angola Penitentiary in Louisiana, most of which was in solitary confinement. Steve, Have you read Solitary by Albert Woodfolks? And if you did, what did you think of it? Book number 4. This is The Walker's Guide to Outdoor Clues and Signs by Tristan Gooley. I see it was a Sunday Times bestseller, so a lot of these copies would have been published. This is about how to navigate through different terrains by looking at signs, like the signs of the weather, signs on plants, looking which side the lichen forms on trees to see which side is north and south. It's a fascinating book. It's a great book for the outdoors. The author, Tristan Gooley, has been to many parts of the world. He's been to Papua New Guinea, he's walked with the Tuaregs in Africa, so I'm interested, has Steve read this? The second half of my choices are all related to Georgia, the country where I'm living, not Georgia, the American state. Tbilisi has been designated the UNESCO World Book Capital for 2021. First of these is Meg Clothier, The Girl King. This is a historical fiction. The Girl King is about Georgia's Queen Tamar, who the Georgians call Tamar Mepe, not Tamar Dedopali. Mepe is the name for a king, not for a queen, because she ruled in her own right, like Queen Elizabeth I in England or Queen Victoria. But other queens in Georgian history have been queens because their husbands were kings. But Meg Clothier is an English writer. Have you read this, Steve? The second book about Georgia is Georgia in the Mountains of Poetry by Peter Nesmith. This is the 4th edition. It's probably the most popular travel writing book about Georgia. It's about the culture of Georgia, about the history of Georgia, and about the fantastic scenery of Georgia. Georgia is the size of Ireland, but it's got the 12th most diverse geography in the world. There's mountains, very high mountains, some are over 5,000 meters high. It's got the coast, Black Sea coast. It's got a semi-desert region around Devik. It's a very interesting and diverse geographical entity, nestled between Turkey, Russia, Azerbaijan and Armenia. The next book is The Pearfield by Nana Ekvtimishvili. The Pearfield was longlisted for this year's Booker Prize. She was a Georgian author. She wrote it in Georgian. It's been translated into English, of course, for the Booker Prize. It didn't get shortlisted. It's set in a residential home for intellectually challenged children, known locally as a school for idiots. It's set in post-Soviet Georgia in the 1990s. Georgia was a very difficult place to live. The infrastructure was completely destroyed because it was part of the Soviet infrastructure, and when that was cut off, it was very difficult times. And this is a very bleak book, but it's been nominated for a prize. I wonder if it's been read by Steve. My final choice, this may be an a-hole pick. This is Nododumbadze, Granny, Iliko, Ilarion and I. Nododumbadze is my favourite Georgian writer. This has been translated into English, but this was translated into English during the Soviet period, and it's not in print now. Nododumbadze is known to all Georgians, and these characters of Granny, Iliko, Ilarion and I, these are his most popular characters, but I don't think he's very well known outside Georgia at all. So, Steve, have you read Nododumbadze? This one, Granny, Iliko, Ilarion and I, or have you read any Nododumbadze? If this is too obscure, you don't have to count it in my score. You can even dock me a point. Okay, so those were my 8 choices. 4 were connected to Georgia, 4 miscellaneous. I'm sure Steve has read some of them. I'm wondering how many of the 8 he has read. I'll be interested to find out. If you like this video, as usual, you can like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.